good evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon, depending on which part of the world you live in. My name is Kevin the Skull Anderson, and my father, Thomas Wigg Anderson, would have celebrated his 50th birthday on this day, December 17th, 2015. It was on this day, December 17th, in 1965, that my father, Thomas Wigg Anderson, was born. It was on this day, this same day, 39 years later, that he celebrated his 39th birthday. And I was only 11 at the time. But then 4 days later, out of the blue, he's in his bathroom taking a dump or whatever. And all of a sudden, his chest starts getting tight. And he has a heart attack in his bathroom. And as you can imagine, he died later that night. When I got the news by my mom the next morning, I was devastated. I was more depressed than I had ever been before in my life. And for nearly 3 weeks after learning this, I couldn't stop crying. I remember this plain as day, plain as plain can be. And I want to be honest here. On this day, December 17th, 2015, my father, Thomas Wigg Anderson, would have been 50 years old, would have celebrated his 50th birthday, but the reason why he is not with me in this world anymore is because he succumbed to the side effects, the dangerous and deadly side effects of drugs. Drugs that he thought would have solved the problem, but instead it only made it worse. My father at times was unfaithful to my mom, but of course he didn't mean to be, because he meant well. He always meant well, especially towards me and my mom and my sister. He was a great guy. And he always wanted the best for me and my sister and my mom. He always wanted to be the best he could be. But when drugs got in the way of that, it just pretty much took over his life. And it pretty much ended his life at some point. My father's funeral was about 4 days after his death, on Christmas Eve in 2004, 11 years ago. And I saw my father prior to that at a funeral home. And this was the first time I had ever looked at a dead person before, much less one of my family members post-mortem. And I just couldn't believe it. I looked at it, I couldn't stop looking at it, and I realized over time that eventually that would be my fate. So as I stand before you guys, as I sit here and just randomly ramble about this one event that changed my life, I can't tell you how painful it must have been for me and my sister and my mother to have to have gone through that. In other words, I don't want your sympathy. I don't want your condolences. All I want is for you to understand. Because all of you can relate to this. All of you know what it's like to have lost a family member. So it's really no secret. So if you think about it, at some point, you're going to die. And at the end of the day, that's a fact that's etched in stone, something that's never going to change. Because at some point, you really are going to die. And so will I.